Good morning, everyone. I'm Cecily Myart-Cruz, UTLA President-elect. Thank you for joining us today, the last day of the school year. Today, we'll be talking about the end of the school year and what we'll be doing over the summer to set up our schools for a safe reopening for next year. UTLA President Alex Caputo-Pearl will be on later to talk about our call to shift funding on school police to student needs like counselors and nurses. We are ending the school year in unprecedented circumstances, away from our students and during a historic time of grief and rage. Giovanni and I successfully made 30 breakfast dates prior to the shelter in place, and we grieve that loss too. As every corner of the country rises up against police brutality and systemic anti-Black racism, we know that the struggle for racial justice is a part of our struggle for the schools our students deserve. On Monday, Giovanni decided not to Zoom with his classmates. He wanted to join the Black Lives Matter rally downtown because he said he needed to be with the people. I think it's so important to listen to young people and have the critical conversations to process the moment we are in. There is a lot of pain and anguish out there, but educators, we are hopeful folks. We also see the incredible energy and incredible promise of what has become a multiracial movement for Black lives. It fills me with pride and hope for what we can become in society. White, Black, Latinx, Asian, Indigenous, Pacific Islander, and others are coming together to demand transformational change. Toppling systems and structures of racism must be done by all of us for a better future for our students. As we close out the school year, a school year like no other, please take a moment to recognize all that you have done to support your students in this tumultuous year of change. Educators, you stepped up, rebuilt your learning communities overnight under the most stressful circumstances while juggling the demands of your own families. You were steadfast, resilient, strong. You were enough. Thank you. Nurses, counselors, librarians, psychiatric social workers, and all health and human service professional staff, you figured out how to keep providing your essential services in this time of shutdown. Thank you. Parents, always our critical partners in this work. Your role has been even more amplified as you helped keep student learning on track. Thank you. To our students out there, we know that this has been especially hard on you. It has been painful. I see it on my son's face almost every day. You miss your friends, your classroom, your school community. I know my baby does too. But just know that when it is safe, we will be together again. That's the day we are all looking toward. We do not know yet what schools will look like when the school year begins in August, but we know we need to get it right for the health and safety of our staff, our students, and their families. Getting it right will take funding. An AFT study released this week found out that it will take $2,300 in extra money for each student to cover increased costs for distance learning, PPE, meeting children's social and emotional needs, additional academic supports for students, and much more. Our society is in crisis. The pandemic is ravaging communities of color disproportionately. The economic crisis is devastating for our families. The fight for racial justice is awakening a broader segment of the public to the reality of systemic racism. Schools and families need this more. We need more in this moment, not less. I hope that you understand. More, not less. But instead of getting extra funding, we're facing a state budget that's based on cuts, funding by 13%. That is definitely unacceptable. Reopening schools without additional funding and without a broader improvement of schools will be unsafe and will only deepen profoundly racial and class inequalities. Fighting budget cuts and winning what schools and families need will take all of us. We see it in the streets right now, and we know it from our organizing work. Progress takes coalitions. In 2017, UTLA helped to form California Alliance for Community Schools, CACS, a coalition of local teachers unions in the state. We've now grown to include 12 local teachers unions, from up in San Francisco and Oakland to down in San Diego, together representing tens of thousands of educators. In this time, we have united behind three key demands. One, we oppose any cuts and demand a federal bailout for public education and social services. We will not allow privatization through distance learning. Two, we will vote for the Schools and Communities First initiative in November, which will raise $11 billion in new money for schools and social services. And three, we demand that healthcare, economic, housing, and workplace needs of our students and families be met. As a critical first step, we are moving a petition among our members to commit to the fight against layoffs and budget cuts, and for the resources our communities need in this time of crisis. UTLA members, contact your chapter chair about signing the Classroom and Communities Over Cuts petition if you haven't done so already. This coalition, CACS, California Alliance for Community Schools, is holding a town hall tonight for educators on education in the time of crisis. Yes, we know it's last minute. Yes, we know that it's the last day of school. But having the opportunity to dialogue with educators up and down the state is a rare opportunity to wrap our arms around all of the challenges that we face, including conditions for a safe reopening of our schools and working for racial, social, and economic justice. I really hope you will join this discussion today. This is how we take on the work ahead and build the power to win. The registration link is in the comments section below, and you can also go to the event on our Facebook page. Over the summer, we will be bargaining with LAUSD over what a safe reopening looks like. Remember, it's bargained. Last week, we emailed an online survey to our members about your concerns and challenges and what supports you feel are necessary to reopen schools. We want to thank the thousands of members who have already submitted the survey and shared their concerns in the open-ended comment section. If you haven't submitted it yet, please do so. as soon as possible. And if you did not receive the survey via email, look for the link in the Facebook comments below right now to request one. I want to thank the community that held up our young people for this amount of time. I want to shout out personally Ms. Holguin for a fantastic third grade year. Educators, you made it. You are brave and you are enough. We need you to get some rest. We need you to rejuvenate yourself because we are going to all need to be ready for the fight forward. This fight will be like no other, but I know that together we can win. I want to wish you a fantastic summer. I want to wish you time spent with family and friends and get some rest. Start reading some books. Enjoy yourself. We will be in touch. I want to give you my love, my strength, and the peace that we're going to need for the fight forward. Now we're going over to ACP now.
All right. Hello, UTLA. Parents, students, UTLA. This is Alex Caputo-Pearl, the president of United Teachers Los Angeles. Welcome. We love you. We've been with you throughout this entire pandemic. And we're coming to you live from my house again. I want to thank Cecily, Myart-Cruz, who went first. She's going to be an incredible president of United Teachers Los Angeles, starting on July 1st. And I couldn't be more proud to be passing the baton to Cecily Myart-Cruz in that presidential role. Today, I want to talk about the school police issue that folks have been hearing about. Getting a text here, okay. And I want, as we talk about the school police issue, I want people to be principled in their agreement or in their disagreement. We can have good debate about this, but what the officers and the board of directors of UTLA are not going to stand for is any sort of racist or sexist attacks on people, including on our president-elect. So let's do this in a constructive way. Look, I know that for some of us, this debate about policing and school police can be jarring, right? And I'm actually asking, as a white man, I'm asking for all of our members, and particularly our white members of UTLA, to think outside of themselves. And I want all of us to lead with empathy in this discussion that we're having, this really, really important discussion that we're having. We all know what's happening in the world right now. Outrage around the police murder of George Floyd has turned into an incredible movement uprising, a movement for Black lives, a movement against anti-Black racism. And we need to look at policing as an institution in this context. The UTLA Board of Directors last week passed by a vote of 35-2 a motion that would eliminate the LA school police budget. Okay, LAUSD has its own police force, so it would eliminate that LAUSD school police budget. And the motion says that that money instead would go towards making sure that we have community schools with wraparound services, particularly in Black neighborhoods. The money would go towards psychiatric social workers, mental health support, counselors, health and human services. And the call is for investment in those kind of things because our students have gone for so long without enough of those things, without community schools, psychiatric social workers, mental health. Okay. Now, the UTLA House of Representatives, which is a larger body of teachers and educators from across the city, Later this month, we'll decide on whether that board of directors motion becomes the formal policy of the organization. And we're using these weeks now to dialogue with members, to listen to each other, and to debate and listen to each other's views and perspectives. Now, in the comments section right now in this Facebook Live, you'll see a letter from the UTLA Board of Directors, from all of us, from all across the city, explaining why we took that vote on the school police. The vote was not based on personal against particular LA school police officers as human beings. It wasn't based on that. It was based on the institution of policing and whether it is appropriate to have policing in schools in this way. The city of Minneapolis, the city of Portland, the city of Richmond, California, have all voted in the last 2 weeks to remove police from schools in the last 2 weeks. Denver is about to do the same thing. Oakland very well may do the same thing in a couple of weeks. That current movement is rooted in decades of organizing, particularly in Black communities, challenging the way policing is happening. Now, UTLA members, parents, students, youth, we've been through a lot together. We've been through a strike together. We've supported each other during a pandemic together. And now we're in this inspiring movement moment for Black lives. We as educators teach and educate within a district that is 88% students of color. And we in LAUSD serve the largest group of Black students in the state of California and one of the largest groups of Black students across the country. This is an important moment for us, all of us together. This is an important moment. So I want to take a few minutes to talk about this. The LA School Police budget is $70 million. This is the largest school police force in the country. And while crime has gone down over the last 10 years and other school programs, including mental health services, have been cut, the school police force has increased in that same time by 15%. Now, we're all affected by racism, institutional racism, even if it's not directed at us. The plummeting of school funding in California over the last 40 years is because of racism. As the student population in California became increasingly colored, the funding increasingly went down because the view was that Black and brown students aren't worthy of adequate funding. That's racism. And we're all affected by it. When I taught at Crenshaw High School for many, many years in South LA, I was affected by that because we're in such horribly under-resourced schools and we see our students suffer. We're all affected by institutional racism, no matter what our racial background is. Now, UTLA over the years has been an unapologetic leader on racial justice issues. When we struck last year, it was our racial justice demands around creating an immigrant support fund, around ending random searches, not really random, and targeted Black students more than other students. Our demand for more green space in South LA and East LA. Those racial justice demands during our strike brought us huge alliance and support from the community. We've been leaders on racial justice. Last month, as part of our longtime relationship with Black Lives Matter LA, the UTLA House of Representatives, that's the formal policymaking body, that's hundreds of educators from across the city. The UTLA House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed a motion to support a program called Black LA Demands in Light of COVID-19. And this called for the defunding of police and redirecting money towards social services. Social services that you see every day that our students need, and is heartbreaking. On this issue of the school police department in particular, students especially Black students, have been raising problems they've seen, felt, and experienced over the years. Organizations that have worked with these youth, like Black Lives Matter LA, Students Not Suspects, Youth Justice Coalition, Community Rights Campaign, and Students Deserve, have been in the lead of this. Some of the great student leaders from the organization Students Deserve, I'll just shout them out right here. These are incredible young people, incredible young people. Sarah Giotto from Dorsey, Asia Bryant from Hamilton, Ashanti Polk from King Drew, Yvonne Ortega from Garfield, and so many more. Really incredible young people building a movement based on their experience and how they feel. The UTLA, through the board of directors and the House of Representatives, we've been involved in fights like this over the last 6 years. This is not the first time that policing has come up for us. UTLA was involved in the coalitions 6 years ago that made sure that the LA school police stopped ticketing students for just being late to school. That's a horrible way to put students into the school to prison pipeline. We were part of that coalition. 5 years ago, part of the coalition that got the LA School Police Department to give back a tank and automatic rifles that they had received from the federal military. Because why would you want an LA School Police Force to have that sort of thing? We were part of that coalition. More recently, during the strike, we were part of the random searches pushback. And now we're part of the demand to stop using pepper spray in our schools. It's inappropriate. It's called a chemical weapon within juvenile halls. They don't use pepper spray in juvenile halls. It's illegal. Why should we be using it in LA schools? We've been a part of this for years, okay, of looking at the issue of police and force against students. These should have been easy things to figure out. Giving back a tank, stopping the ticketing of a student because they're late to school, which is not a criminal offense. It should have been easy to figure out. Too often, they were not easy to figure out. And the LA School Police Department pushed back on us. It was not because of one individual. It wasn't because of one human being. It was because of the institution of policing, which has a certain mindset about what their job is, particularly in communities of color. And it's time for that mindset to go away. It's time for police to be removed from schools. The UTLA Board of Directors is saying that if Black lives matter to us, we must not have police in schools. While 8% of LAUSD's population is Black, 25% of the LA School Police Department's arrests are Black. 25% of those total arrests are of elementary and middle school students. Elementary and middle school students being arrested. School to prison pipeline is literally right there before us as we look at that. Black researchers from Million Dollar Hoods and UCLA have been on the forefront of bringing these statistics forward. Many students, and Black students in particular, because of historic patterns of brutality against their communities by the LAPD, by the LA County Sheriffs, they are traumatized by the presence of police at their school. Can you imagine? Imagine what happened to George Floyd if you're the child of George Floyd and the hundreds of others that those sorts of things happen to here in LA. Imagine seeing police at your school. Our Black students are traumatized by that in school. And aggressive tactics like pepper spray double down on that traumatizing. Schools are supposed to ameliorate trauma, not increase trauma. A recent study from Tulane University confirms this, the trauma Black students feel. Black scholars like Amir Whitaker at the ACLU have led the way on study after study. Listen to some of these statistics. The LA School Police has used excessive force, including pepper spray, far more often in schools that serve Black students in South LA. like using it at Dorsey recently and at Fremont recently. School police nationally are far more likely to arrest Black students. School police nationally are 3 times more likely to arrest disabled students than there are able students, and 7 times more likely to arrest low-income students than middle-class students. It's been shown in studies by Harvard University and Columbia University that arrests in school affect student achievement negatively for that student and contribute factors for dropping out of school. 14 million students in the United States, let me repeat that, 14 million students in the United States have police in their schools, but do not have a counselor, do not have a nurse, do not have a psychologist, do not have a social. We need to change. The LA School Police Department was created in 1948 at exactly the time that the children of Black workers and other workers of color were flocking to LA and coming into LA schools because of the World War II factory boom. We have to have the courage of looking at that history and saying, why would the school police department be created right then in 1948 with the increase of students of color in LA schools? We have to have courage to say that that was a racialized creation of the LA School Police Department. It was a racialized way to control youth of color in the 1940s. And the LA School Police Department expanded during Bill Clinton's racialized war on crime and drugs in the 1990s, and then expanded again in the 2000s with Rudy Giuliani's racialized broken windows, no tolerance policies. We must have the courage to call history what it is, and also the courage to look to the future in a different way. This movement for Black lives right now is demanding to do that with moral authority. Given this research and experience, police are not appropriate in school. Imagine what we could do with resources that diverted from the LA School Police budget. Literally hundreds of counselors and mental health professionals could be hired. Over 100 new schools could be given support from community schools with wraparound services. We could have more campus aides, more unarmed campus security hired from the community, more gang intervention workers, peacekeepers, peer mediators, people who are from the community, who are trusted and respected by the youth and community. Think about all of those things we could do by diverting that money. These are all things that across the country that are doing this, that are removing police from schools. These are all well-researched alternatives to school policing, and that's where these school districts are investing in. Sisters and brothers, I want you to stay with me here. I'm going to say something that might be jarring, and it might be jarring in particular for white educators. But it's something we've got to work through together. We're in the middle of a profound movement for racial justice, unlike anything we've seen in 50 years. And we've got to dig deep, and we've got to be uncomfortable. I say this as a white man who believes that white people need to step up right now. And I also say that knowing that regardless of your race, we are all shaped by the culture that surrounds us. So here's what I want to say. Rethinking policing in our schools is a crucial part of challenging white supremacist culture. I'm not calling anybody a member of the KKK or anything like that. What I'm saying is this. This country was founded on white supremacy. We're educators. We know this. The genocide of Native Americans, the enslavement of Black people, the taking of land and violence against Mexicans, the labor, internment, and violence against Asians. Not that whites have not faced oppression based on class and other things. Many have. But our history shows us that it is no surprise that white supremacist culture still pervades within our culture. We are all shaped by it, every single one of us, including me. To be shaped by it doesn't mean you're racist. It's like all being shaped by consumer culture. It's just there in ways that we notice, but also there in ways that we don't notice, that are unconscious. Knowing that we are all in some way shaped by the idea that white is the norm and folks who are not white are the other, knowing that we're shaped that way, we've got to ask ourselves some questions. Why have we as a society assumed that an overwhelmingly of color school district needs policing inside schools the way we have it? Why have we assumed that with students of color? Why have we allowed this to happen year after year when we know that students of color, and Black students in particular, are negatively affected? Why have we allowed it to continue? Why have we allowed it to continue when the life affirming anti racist alternatives are clear? And instead of this policing of children, these are children. Instead of this policing of children, why have we not chosen, with the power of every educator's instinct and heart, why have we not chosen to instead shower students with counselors, mental health support, campus aides, mentors, programs, family support, and everything that we know works? Everything that we know is love, and that we would want for our own children. Why have we not done that? It is time to push back against the unconscious and conscious assumptions of white supremacist culture that would have us unconsciously view students as the other. It's time to stop policing children in this way and bring them tens of millions of dollars in life affirming support. Now, all of this said, I know that there are questions, and I respect and love all of our UTLA members. I really mean that. We've been through a lot together over the last 6 years. I respect and love all of you and want to dialogue with all of you. So I know there's questions. Let me address a few of them. Number one, there is no evidence that schools are safer with police inside the schools. No evidence. Studies from Rutgers University, the Justice Policy Institute, and the Center for Problem-Oriented Policing show this. In fact, a study from Rutgers University and University of Maryland show that having school police actually can make schools less safe because it breaks trust between children and adults. And it makes it much less likely that young people will say to an adult, hey, my peer over there is having a problem, which makes the school less safe. So there's no evidence that having police in schools the way that we do makes it more safe. Number two, school police have not stopped school shootings. 85% of the school shootings that we've heard about in the media have taken place at schools with armed police officers. 85%. In the last 7 years, no school shootings have been stopped by armed police. Number three, in districts where there are no school-based police, there are, of course, emergency protocols and measures. And more creative thinking is going on across the country on how to make sure that those emergency protocols and assistance are good for students, good for the school, good for the community. Number four, some members have asked, what happens if a situation escalates on campus? And here's where we've got to use our imagination, folks. We've got to imagine school safety in a different way. And yes, by diverting LAUSD monies, by forcing the state to give us more money for our schools, we can imagine a different way of doing school safety. Imagine when you see a situation escalating with students, imagine being able to send a text and get an unarmed campus security right there quickly. Someone respected in the community, quickly to the scene. Imagine being able to send a text and quickly having copious mental health support right there in the moment. Imagine these staff actually having the time to sit down with students after an escalated situation and get to the roots of the problem instead of just dealing with the symptoms. Imagine that. I taught in South LA for 22 years. I can imagine that, but it's going to take doing things differently. Sorry, text about, I get text from people about the face. We're all okay tech-wise, right? Pablo, we're okay tech-wise, right? Okay. Number 5. Okay, give me a second. Give me a second here. Sorry. Okay. Number 5. Police have associations, but there is a long history of tension with the rest of the labor movement because, frankly, of the nature of police's jobs. Plus, police must cross picket lines and are directed by management to cross picket lines. And they've been used many, many times to break down strikes and oppose management's will. And 6, as in any economic conversion, whether it's closing down coal mines or downsizing aerospace, we advocate for a transition with justice for workers. We believe that if the elimination of the LA School Police Department happens, we believe that school police staff should train and can train and should be supported to train for new jobs outside of policing to support students if they choose. We believe they should be supported in this. It's happened before in other economic sectors, and it can happen here. This is not the call to eliminate the LA School Police Department is not against people. We're here to support people. It's about the institution of policing. Sisters and brothers, I'm going to close. The board of directors, the UTLA board of directors believes that in the current moment, in the fight for Black lives, in the struggle for racial justice, and in our commitment to our profession, that it gives us an awesome responsibility to make sure that those who have been most pressed down over the years, starting with Black people, we must make those folks feel 100% safe and 100% supported. Because if we do that in our schools, it means the entire school will feel safe and supported. And it means that our whole society will take steps towards feeling safe and supported. That is why we have taken this position as the UTLA Board of Directors. UTLA members, parents, students, I love you. We've been with you throughout this pandemic. I know this is hard. I know this is difficult, but we've got to make ourselves uncomfortable. I'm so appreciative that you're diving deep on this. We encourage more dialogue, more conversation, with an eye towards building our movement. We'll make it through this pandemic. We'll make it through the economic depression that's coming. We will fight back against layoffs. We will fight back against healthcare cuts. We will fight back against budget cuts, against student programs, and we will stand up for racial justice. Sisters and brothers, I want to congratulate you on finishing an unprecedented school year. You're incredible. You've done incredible work, and much love to all of you. Take care.